Welcome back to Talking Shop with Shop Saber. I am Brandon. We got Nick back in the building. What's up, Nick?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Dude,
good to
you
be back.
were at a heck of a hockey game yesterday.
That was, it was from when we walked into the game and we were talking to the people we were with. We're like, yeah, this is the best team in the league.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you're like, oh, this might
Minnesota
be.
Wild versus Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, it might be a little dicey to watch, right?
Yeah.
You kind of.
Well, especially because we were all at the game on Saturday. We had our employee appreciation event. Pretty awesome. Thanks to Geneva Capital, we were able to put on a cool event where we brought a bunch of the employees to a Wild game, and we really had a good time as Shop Saber crew. And we took on one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
One of the worst teams in the league. And we give up a goal with 31 seconds left in the game, go to overtime, and we lose.
Yep.
So now you roll into the next day, or 2 days later, against the Vancouver Canucks, who are ranked number 1 in the NHL right now.
Yep.
Doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence going into a game like that.
Nope. And then they go down early.
Go down 3 goals in the first.
Yeah, and then by the time get near the end of the second period, it's 5-1, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh gosh, should we just leave,
Here it goes.
leave and go to dinner now?
Yeah.
We're like, no, we'll stick. They ended up getting those 5-on-3s at the end of the second period, and kind of starting to get some penalties on Vancouver. And we're like, oh, they can get back into this. We get a couple goals, it won't be so
Yeah.
bad. And at the intermission, I told those guys, I'm like, they're going to come out in the third period and they're going to tie this game.
Yeah.
Just wait. And
Because they went into the intermission 5-2.
5-2. Yep.
Yep, they scored in that with 30 seconds left in the second period.
Yep.
And then it happened.
The place. It was. I don't even know how to describe it. It was like they scored the first goal. The place obviously gets loud and is crazy. By the time we even sat down, they scored again.
Yep.
They hadn't even announced the goal before that, and they scored again.
Yep.
And the play obviously crazy
Yeah.
again.
5 goals in under 5 minutes. No, 5 goals in just over 5
So
minutes.
it was like the sixth fastest.
Fourth fastest.
That's what fourth in the history of the league that
Yep.
a team has scored that many goals.
Yep.
7 goals in a period. It was like a football game.
Yeah.
10
Final
to
score
7.
10-7.
Yeah.
Like, no, yeah, 10-7, right?
10-7, yeah.
Yeah. Unreal. 17 goals in a hockey game.
Yeah, and the way I explained it to the guys we were with is I was like, look, you guys probably don't know sports gambling, but like the over-unders in hockey games are usually between like 3 and 5, maybe 6. So that's like the combined goals
Yeah,
for a
seven-
game is between 3 and
17,
6.
like
and then
over-under?
you had 17,
Yeah.
including, what was it, 10 in the third period?
Ridiculous.
Was those 5
10
to 1,
goals.
too?
Yeah, 10 goals in the third period.
It was
No,
just
9 goals in the third
It
period.
was insanity. Team
Yeah,
record for goals in a game. 3 hat tricks.
3
in a
hat
game.
tricks. I was
Yeah.
say 1 from Vancouver, 2 from the Wild. They're just unreal.
And something I'd never seen before, they picked up all the hats, and then we were leaving from the game, and they had tables set up in the concourse with all the hats on them, so you could like re-pick up your hat.
I've never seen that
I've never
before.
seen it before in my life. There was hats everywhere, just on tables to grab and take with you.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's weird.
I know.
I've never seen that either.
No.
Normally, they just have the hat sale whenever there's a
Yeah.
hat trick. That's crazy. So anyways,
It
we
was
just
fun,
talked
yeah.
hockey for a solid like 3 minutes, but it was a wild game. So anybody who's a sports fan who saw that, like, pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Our team's not very good this year, but now we can at least hang our head on the fact that, hey,
Yep.
we did something cool this year.
And they're just kind of giving that little bit of hope that maybe they can do something at the end. They tend, but the problem is they tend to play up to the good teams, and then they play down to the terrible teams like we saw.
They got to get into the playoffs, because if they can get into the playoffs, they can play up to the good
Yep.
teams.
And then you never know. We've all seen the playoffs. You
Just
never know
gotta
what's
get
going to
in.
happen in the playoffs.
Panthers last year, man.
Chip chair and a chance. That's all you need.
Yep, just get me in. No, so like I said, going back though, we did the employee appreciation event on Saturday. That was fun.
It was awesome.
Yeah, so shout out again, Geneva Capital. You know, them being able to make some of that stuff happen. We had a lot of fun. Got to bring a lot of employees to 2 suites that they were able to get their hands on for us. So that was pretty cool. And got to hang out with a lot of employees outside of the work environment and kind of just get a little R&R and take in the hockey game.
And it's nice when you can have that time to like actually chat with people outside
Right.
of work. We're in work. Everybody's busy.
Right.
You kind of say hi in passing, talk for a couple seconds. But
Yep.
to
The cool
actually-
thing for me is you meet the families.
yeah.
Like you get to meet, sometimes their spouse or their kids or, and that's fun for me to watch the interaction there and just, be able to really get to know them a little bit more personal. Because like you said, we're all super busy here and sometimes you don't get time to do that.
Right.
And it's the little things, sometimes little things like that make a difference. But, that kind of leads me into what I wanted to talk about today. And, some of it's talking about, the little things that go unnoticed, right? And not necessarily little things that go unnoticed for employees. I mean, you can think of it from that side, but it's from a business standpoint. I want you to think about, as your business sits here, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, hey, what do I do in my business that maybe I don't get credit for? Does that make sense, Nick?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of people that want to do things like that don't necessarily want to get the credit for it, right?
Right.
People are just kind of
It's called being humble.
humble. Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to get your work done, do your best, and
Correct. But I think about this is what bugs me, and I'm going to be honest. This subject came up from the internet is what it is. The power of the internet today is just a mess. There's so many people that I'm just going to say the word that are assholes, and they're so willing to go out on the internet and just blast somebody, right? Whether it's a person, it's a family they don't like, it's a sports team, it's a whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. It's a business, right? They go out there and they just blast these people. And sometimes it's so unfair from a standpoint of they're doing it just because they have the ability to do it, and they don't really care about the repercussion that they're causing.
right. And I don't think because there's not going to be any repercussions to them, they don't really.
Well,
care.
here's the problem: is there could be. In today's world, there's a little thing called slander, and slander is something that's taken very seriously. And more companies, I think, need to start to use it because, if you're one of those companies that are sitting out there and you worry about your customers blasting you, you do have a line of defense. And it's if they're not speaking the truth and you can prove it, it's illegal.
Right.
They can't do that to your business. And that's the problem you run into is because there's so many companies out there that, they really do a lot of good things. And I've seen it from our customers. I've seen our customers who they get attacked by one of their customers, because I follow a lot of our own customer social medias just out of respect because, they're a customer of ours and I like to see what they do. And I've seen it where they do some really cool projects and then some, you get that one guy who's just a troll, who's out there just trying to stir the pot on their posts. And, historically, I just ignore those people. That's just kind of how I am. But some of these businesses take it so personally. And it's why they turn off comments to things. And it's why they, you know what I'm saying? They just don't want to deal with it because it gives them anxiety. And I think to myself, how much it affects their day to day because they're afraid to promote themselves because of one person who's going to go out there and blast them.
One, I think when that kind of stuff does happen, I think businesses need to be less afraid to stand up for themselves.
Right. Tell a story.
Reply back to that person and be like, hey, look, you're a customer of ours. You've had, some things happen, but you've not once reached out to us to try to allow us to help. You're just, their first reaction is to jump online and hope that everybody else jumps in to pile on with them.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. That's what these people do. Some people are so unrealistic in their thoughts that they think everybody's dealing with the same thing. So I'm going to blast them online and then everybody's going to be on my side.
Yep.
And if you just stand up and tell the whole story, a lot of times I think you can defend yourself.
Absolutely.
But again, going back to little things that go unnoticed, an example for us, and then maybe this isn't clear for everybody, so I'm just going to use an in-house example. Little things that go unnoticed to me are we ship machines all around the world. Nick, you help with a lot of that, you and Brianna. And we're very picky on who we allow to ship our machines.
Oh, yeah.
Would you agree with that?
For sure.
I want to ask you, and you can be honest here, how many times do you think a week you guys turn away trucks?
Probably at least half a dozen.
Yeah, so six or seven times a week.
Probably,
you guys
for
literally
sure.
tell a truck you're not going to load them.
Yep.
And that's something that I think goes unnoticed. Those are the things that a business, what are the things in other people's business do they do that they don't get credit for? But for us, we build a product. We give the customer the option for customer pickup or having us ship it on their behalf. It's your choice, whether you want to arrange your freight or you want us to handle it. However, we're very honest. We don't own the trucking companies. We have no liability control over that. So once the truck shows up here and we put it on there, it's out of our hands. We can't do anything for you.
Yep.
So we're very honest. We're going to give you the trucking company's number, the name, you can control it from that point. You can communicate anything you need. But we do take a level of responsibility on our end to make sure that when a truck shows up and it doesn't fit our standards, right? An example of this is we require every flatbed load that we ship to have tarps.
Yep.
Some companies don't care if it's tarped or not, but we do because a tarp is another level of protection. And if we can add one more level of protection from something happening, it's just peace of mind for a customer.
For sure.
Well, sometimes they show up with these Fisher-Price tarps, right? That's what I call them, the
That
Fisher-Price.
probably wouldn't even keep your tent dry if you were out camping.
Well, it's honestly, that's exactly what I think. They're Fisher-Price tarps. They're great if you were going to put a tarp up in your house, right? But they're not weather resistant. Like going down the freeway, they're going to tear from the speed alone.
For sure.
Like you and I have seen them. Like they do not belong on a semi truck, right?
No.
And it's like we're really big on that. And like a customer, or like we've had truck drivers show up and we're like, no, we're not going to load you. You need to go get better tarps.
Yeah, and I think it's going to cause us a little bit of a headache having to find a new truck.
Right.
Tell the customer, hey, they showed up. It's not going to leave today. We're just going to delay your delivery for a day or two while we get a new truck. But at the end of the day, those little headaches or having, an upset truck or whatever is worth the peace of mind and knowing that the machine is going to get from point A to point B as protected as possible.
But here's the thing that I want to point out. That's the thing that goes unnoticed.
For sure.
We could easily have just said, yep, what do we care, right? It's got tarps. Load it. If the tarp rips, it's not our problem. It's really on the truck and it's on their insurance.
Yep.
But that's a headache for our customer to deal with.
And then say something unfortunately does happen, and then
Right.
they can't accept the machine because it gets damaged.
Yep.
Something happens. Then it has to come back to us.
Well, here's the thing. Then that's where it starts. This is what my point comes to is then the customer wants to blast us, right?
Yep.
Oh my God, my machine showed up bad, blah, blah. It wasn't us. It was the trucking company, right? We did everything right. The trucking company failed you. And again, you had the choice to pick it up yourself, but you had us align it. So by us simply turning a truck away, like we're trying to protect our customer to the maximum capabilities we can,
100%.
right?
Yep.
But then we get blasted for that sometimes. Well, you said it would be here Tuesday, and now it's going to be Wednesday, and blah, blah. And they're super mad at us. And it's like, would you have rather I just stuck it on that machine and let it go?
Right. And hope that it got to you.
Yeah, and that's where I go back to as a business. Sometimes you're in a lose-lose situation. Mm-hmm. You try to do the right thing, and you still lose.
Yep.
And I, as a business out there, if you're thinking, and you're hearing this story, I want you to think about your business. And remember, sometimes in business, you're going to do things that go unnoticed. Like, you might be using better quality wood in your cabinets than you have to, and you might not get credit for it, right? The customer might never really realize how much you put into that cabinet project. Mm-hmm. And I have customers of mine who I've talked to who have said, part, doesn't look right to them. They'll just remake it. And they're not going to charge the customer for it. They throw the other stuff away. But you don't get credit for that.
Not at all.
Right? You don't charge them extra for that part. So now you've just spent more money. Same thing with us. When we build machines, we test every frame before it ever goes to manufacturing. And there have been cases and there have been situations where a frame doesn't test to our standard. And our standards are pretty high. Like we don't have a small standard. So could we have used the frame? I bet in 75% of the cases we could have used the frame and it never even be a concern. But I can't tell you the number of times we have cut steel apart and recycled steel because it just didn't meet our standard.
Right. And it goes unnoticed. They just assume
exactly.
It was the first run of something. It came out perfect the first time.
But that's what I want. I want them to assume that we got it right because that's what we're doing. But the reality is, like, if I charged you $50,000 for your machine and I had to do the steel twice, did I really make the same amount of money?
No, not even.
No,
close.
my profit went down.
Yep.
But I didn't come back to you and say, well, the steel was bad, so your cost is going to be $1,500 more because I had to buy another stick of that steel. I've never done that.
And like you said, it was probably 75% of the time up to the standards.
Correct.
How many companies still would have gone
Shipped
back and done it the right way?
Correct.
Instead of just sending it out.
They would have just shipped it. That's
Right,
exactly, you're
sure.
right. Like, that's the little things that go unnoticed.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest thing that you need to consider when buying products that are made in America and made by companies that care, right? Mm-hmm. That, to me, is what American made means. It's not... There's some people out there that, talk about the true standards of American made and, you don't know where that, lacquer thinner came from. Or you don't know, like we've seen the TikTok videos and the crap out there where people spew and talk about things. Like the reality is it's those things that people don't realize. Mm-hmm. It's the little things behind the scenes that make it American made. It's the things we do that, we're using North American steel. That's true. There's no argument there.
Yep.
We are using North American labor. We are building these frames from the ground up. We are doing everything that we can within reason to build a machine made here in America.
100%.
And there's a lot of companies not doing that. There's a lot of companies buying a product straight up out of China and putting a sticker on it.
But then they hide behind the American.
Correct.
Made
Correct.
name.
And then they hide behind and pretend to be American made. Like we have opened our facility to every single person who's ever wanted to come here and tour it that is considering our product.
Well, and how many people, not just in our business, but in general, will just see something like that or hear, oh, it's American made, it's made here, whatever, and never do their due diligence to see if it really is. They just take somebody's word for it,
Right.
and assume that it is.
Right.
and buy it and pay that top dollar
Right.
for it, even though that's not
But
what it is.
those are the little things that go unnoticed,
Yep.
right? We go to the extent to be as American made as we can possibly be. And we do a lot of things that companies don't do. And it's like, I want companies to think about that. Like when you're investing in products or tools or things for your shop, that's what sets Shop Sabre apart. And that's what sets your company potentially apart, right? As you're listening to this, like, why do your customers buy from you? It's the little things that go unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that I don't think we put enough effort into and enough focus on, right?
Yeah.
Because that to me is where the service comes from. To me, that's where the quality comes from. It's not just about doing the process, right? It's about doing the process right.
Correctly. Yep.
And that's the biggest thing is that like it's about, like I said, you can buy 3 products in America, but if one company is willing to go to the extent of, like you said, turning a truck away because they don't want the product to get wrecked, like I'm gonna tell you right now, there's something to be said about like what the way Amazon does things. Like they're a company that kind of gets a lot of flack, but when you think about the amount of energy they put into developing their own shipping companies,
Yep.
and I know that some people look at it, well, it's because they can make more money that way. Maybe, right? But by them owning their own trucking company, they now have all the liability. They have the cost of the freight company. There's so much maintenance costs and so much regulation and so much more now they have to deal with.
Well, that's exactly it. People just see like what's in front of them.
They see
like,
profit.
Yeah, and they don't understand all of the other things that
Correct.
go into it. I mean,
But I
there's-
look at it from the other standpoint of like, it's something that goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
How many companies are willing to go to a logistical standards that they go to assure that their next day, or, now it's not next day. It seems like, I feel like things are 1 week now in Prime, but
Sometimes there is, yeah.
you know what I'm saying
Yeah,
though?
yeah.
Like to get to that level, like they have, and they've built hubs all around the world, like to try to make Prime like truly Prime everywhere. You know, like
heck, we have several of them right within distance of here. I mean, they're all
stupid.
over. Yeah.
So stupid. But I mean, it's a thing that and I'm not saying like, wow, good for you, Amazon, they're the greatest company ever. Like I'm not saying that either. But I'm just saying it's not a good or bad thing. But it's things that go unnoticed.
Yep.
The amount of energy and time that these companies have put into it, I'm impressed by it. I'm impressed by that because it's things that other companies were not willing to do.
Well, and obviously they put a lot of cost into it up front to just get to that point, right? Like
Right.
The investment to get there was
Correct.
ginormous. So to just think it's all profit because
Correct.
they're doing it now. I mean, they have a lot to go back and recoup and cover, right?
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, we know they're a profitable company. They're
yeah.
doing things right.
Yep.
But that's why you're in business. Like, there's nothing wrong with them making a profit. There's nothing wrong with the local cabinet guy making a profit. He shouldn't be working for
I
free.
was going to say that's the point, right?
Like,
if you're in a business, you're.
And then that's, I think, the things that go unnoticed, right? Like people always talk about how, well, man, I can buy that material for this much. I don't need to pay him to build me cabinets for that price. You're right, you can. But there's something to be said about the knowledge he has. It's the little things that go unnoticed, right?
Well, and how much time are you going to then spend trying to figure out how to cut it and put it together and install, like all the things that go into getting those cabinets just from the material itself?
Well, it's more
Right?
than
I mean-
it's more than just that too, though. Again, he had to learn how to do it a certain way, right? Like you talk about that. There was a friend that's a mechanic, and he always jokes about it, and I'm sure it's something most people have seen, but where they talk about, it only took him 15 minutes to fix it, but he charged me $300.
Yep.
And it's like, well, it's more than that. Yeah, it took him 15 minutes to do it today.
This time, yep.
But he had to learn how to do that. He had to invest in the shop. He had to invest in the tools, the insurance, all the stuff that goes along with that.
Yep.
It's all those little things that you don't notice. You just looked at the 15 minutes it took him to do it.
So he made that brought in that $300 in 15 minutes, but
Correct.
probably spent 150 of that going back into all the other things that make
Right.
his business
Like the
run.
cost of operations,
Yeah.
right? So it's like at some point you have to start to think about it from, if you can do it cheaper, then do it yourself, right?
sure.
Like there is something to be said about that. But there comes a point where it's peace of mind. And that me and my one of my brothers were talking about travel. We were talking about travel agents, right? We were joking around about travel agents, and he's like, yeah, I can buy a flight direct maybe a few bucks cheaper. He said, a lot of times I shop them and we're pretty close. He goes, but sometimes the hotels I can get cheaper because I can find a room or whatever. And and some of the, car stuff. He goes, I might save on a trip. I could save a few $100s sometimes. He said, but sometimes it's just not worth me saving a few $100s.
Right.
He's like, I don't have the time to babysit it and look for the best flight and look for the best hotel. And he goes, sometimes I just need to, my brother, he owns a business, and he's like, I just got to get there. I want them to handle it. I want them to handle the details.
For sure.
And there's something to be said. Like, he was telling me about a story. He had a project. He had to be somewhere by Saturday, right? He had to be there Saturday afternoon. Project started Saturday afternoon. So he was going to fly in Saturday morning, right? And he had everything booked in advance. And then his travel agent called him like Thursday. And she's like, there's a big storm rolling in. I anticipate a bunch of flights getting canceled on Saturday. If you want, I can switch your flight right now to Friday night, get you out of here before it all hits.
Yep.
And that way you're there guaranteed. And he's like, let's do it, right? So they do it. So lo and behold, the flight he would have been on gets canceled.
Yep.
So he would have missed this project, right? But like we were talking about, it's the little things that go unnoticed, right? His travel agent went out of her way to like watch that schedule. Like, he wasn't thinking about it.
I was going to say, none of us would have probably thought that far.
I've never, like, in my life been like, oh, I should look at the weather down there to see if I'm going to get canceled.
No.
And here's the thing that you can't predict. And I think this is the one thing that, again, goes unnoticed, right? My flight is from Minneapolis to Oregon, right?
Yep.
Just pick two states. I don't care. I just picked a place. But the flight before Minneapolis is coming from Syracuse, New York. And there's a snowstorm hitting Syracuse. I don't track that.
Right.
I've never in my life looked at my flight and been like, where is it coming from?
No, never.
But the agent did. She looked at like, okay, there's a snowstorm hitting in New York that's going to cause delays, which will affect Minneapolis to Oregon because of that.
Yep.
And that's the thing that I think goes unnoticed, is like, it's the attention to details. And some of that can be said about your business. Like, when you're buying stuff for your cabinets or your sign or whatever the business you are, you're paying attention to things that your customers sometimes don't even think about. Mm-hmm. They don't have to think about it, because all they're looking for is, I need this style cabinet or this style door, or I need this sign in my business. I don't know what the rules and regulations might be on the electrical for that sign, or I don't know what kind of paint you're going to have to use. I don't really care, right? Like, if I'm going to have you install a sign on my building, you'll be the one that'll install the sign for my building. I don't really care about the UV coating.
Right. Or you'll be like, no, that sign's going to be too big and too bright for what you're allowed to have in your city on that street or whatever. Like those things that people know that we had no idea about or don't even think about. Like,
and that's where I think, like, it's the little things like that that go unnoticed in your business. You're not going to get credit for it.
Right.
You are not. There's no way you're going to get credit for that stuff, right? Little things that go unnoticed that you don't get credit for. And it's, you put in the time and the energy to make sure things go smoothly for your customer. And sometimes they just look at it like, good job, you did your job. Yeah, I did more than my job.
For sure.
I did something there for you that could have been a headache for you, but I took care of it for you.
And if I wouldn't have taken care of it, then you would have been mad about it later
and
down the road.
That's where I think the world is kind of setting itself up for failure right now, is because so many people are a race to the bottom in price, right? We got to race to the bottom, make everything as cheap as we possibly can. At all costs. I'll buy it out of China because I can get it cheaper. I'll buy it out of India because I can get it cheaper. And the problem is sometimes you get exactly what you pay for.
Yeah.
You race to the bottom and you lost all of that service, all of that liability cover. You lost the ability to complain.
Right.
You got what you paid for.
And you're just going to buy the same thing the second time because
that's
no way to fix the first one.
Correct. And that's what I think is funny. And that's kind of where I this episode kind of comes from, is that I think there's a lot of business owners out there that beat themselves up because of the things they can't control, right? There's two things in this world, like we've always said, that you can control: attitude and effort.
Yep.
And as long as you're putting 100% effort into what you're doing, and I don't believe there's anybody at Shop Sabre, I can speak for our business, I can't speak for our customers, but everybody here, I believe, brings 100% effort every day. Like, I don't think there's a department in this business that's like, well, I don't really care if I do my job right. No. Like, I've seen it. Customers or employees come to my office when something's not going well, or to the standards they hold themselves to, and they want to know how we can improve on something. Mm-hmm. I think that says a lot about the business.
Absolutely. Just the amount of pride that goes into all of it, I think, says a lot about all of it.
Well, I mean, they could sit there and just in silence, right?
Right.
Or they could care. Or they could actually care about what they're doing, and then they speak up. But again, it's things that go unnoticed on the other end, right? Nobody knows that we had an employee come up and say, hey, I think we can do this better, blah, blah, blah. We can streamline this, or we can do this to make it more consistent for the customer. Whatever, right?
Yep.
But those are the things that go unnoticed to the customer because, well, I got my machine and it works the way it's supposed to.
Right.
But I think that's what makes it, like a vertically integrated shop like what we have here. There's more to it than just building a machine in the U.S.
Way more.
It's doing things a certain way for the success of your customer.
Well, and think about all the people that do different steps of each machine. Like they all have to be up to the standard of what a shop saver is, right? To go on to the next person. I mean, if one person along the line doesn't do it right, then what happens? It has to start back over, and everybody else has to redo something they've already done.
Accountability.
Once, right?
Yeah. It's holding yourself accountable for doing that job.
Yeah.
It's, again, attitude on that one, right? The attitude is easy to say, you know what? It's not my day.
It's Friday at 2:30.
Right.
I just want to go home. We'll just
We'll shortcut this.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Because that's the difference here is like, I could tell you right now, you could stay at Shop Saver after 5 any day and the doors will be unlocked.
Yep, for sure.
Because there's never been a day that I can recall where we shut down at 5 o'clock on the dot.
No.
We've always got employees that are working late to finish a project and do something.
Yep.
I'm like, and that doesn't exist at some businesses. There's businesses out there that I know at 5:01 they're shutting the lights off.
Absolutely. I've been at places that have done that.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's like, well, there's always tomorrow. Like we have a lot of pride taken here, and I think that can be said about a lot of businesses. Again, we're Shop Saver. We can talk about Shop Saver, so. ShopSaver.com. I'm going to put that plug in there. But the reality is this is more about like your business. And I want the listeners and to think about the little things you're doing that maybe do go unnoticed. Sometimes it's just definition of character, right?
Absolutely.
And that's okay. You don't need credit for every little thing you do. And that's kind of my point. Like we have never thought to ourselves, like we're going to go charge for every single extra bolt we have to use because, a bolt broke.
Yep.
And instead of, that wasn't rolled into the cost. Like, I don't need to go back to you and tell you that you owe me for more because of something that was out of your control.
Yep. And even things that like aren't cost related, like even if we reply to somebody's email at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, whatever, it's just those little things.
Yeah.
Again, that other customers won't see, but that one customer will see.
Right.
That will stick out to them and be like, hey, they helped me with something at, 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night that could have waited until 8 a.m. Thursday morning, right?
This is the thing I find the most humbling for me. You as employees, right? You, Nick, you're a perfect example of this, and I'm going to call it out because I know there's times you've replied at weird hours because I see the notes later on in the system when I'm looking up something else. I see like an email from Nick at 9:08 p.m. But like you don't send me an email, hey, just so you know, I took care of this guy. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's super humble. Like, it's my job.
Yep.
I did my job. I don't need credit for doing my job. But sometimes, you guys have seen, I do the employee spotlight where I send out an email to the whole place when I, calling out people for doing something that's above and beyond. Mm-hmm. And I try to do it as much as I can without overwhelming everybody. But like literally, I could send out an employee spotlight every single day if I wanted to.
Absolutely.
Because there's always somebody in this place doing something that is greater than their job description required.
Well, and I think the thing is sometimes you have to go looking for them because, like you said, people don't call it out. They just do it because they want to do it and take care of a problem. Not even necessarily take care of a problem, but just get somebody an answer that can maybe help them because they're working weird hours. Like they're doing something on the machine that's a hobby or a second job for them, right? So they have a daytime job and they're doing a little bit of stuff at night. It's easy to get them an answer at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and that's just what we do around here.
And that's where I think, again, going the little things that go unnoticed. It's like for your business, like relating it to your business of choosing the right equipment, right? Mm-hmm. Your customer might not give you credit for buying a Shop Saver, right? It's a little thing that goes unnoticed, but it's going to relate back to the quality of the equipment you've purchased, right?
So I was going to say the end result is going to show for your business.
Well, it's easy
the quality that you provide.
Yeah, it's easy to choose the cheapest solution, isn't it?
Yep.
That's always the easy answer.
And then you're going to get the cheapest, more half-assed results, right?
Right, and that's what I was going to say. Outsourcing is another option that people use. Well, it's easy to pay somebody else to do it, right?
Yep.
But a decision to bring that in-house and do it, it's a decision that sometimes goes unnoticed. But the quality solution that you choose to go with, a USA-made product or a USA-made piece of equipment like Shop Saver as an example, it tends to lead to better results.
Just about always.
Yeah, it's better customer satisfaction, especially on your end as the manufacturer of your product, right? I'm a cabinet builder. I'm building my own cabinets versus going to Home Depot and buying cabinets, right? I can control more. I control my lead time. I control my quality. I can control my finish, whatever it is. I have the ability to deliver a better customer satisfaction only because I control more.
100%. And obviously you can have a lot less cookie cutter and more custom projects, right? Because you have the ability to design and do what you want to make for your customers.
That's right.
100%. I mean, that's the thing I think that is the most unnoticed little detail, is that like how many little things you can do with having a piece of equipment you can count on.
Right. And
I mean,
that has the versatility to do all those things.
We share on Tuesdays every week, we share a customer testimonial.
Yep.
We've been doing that for months. I mean, months.
Yeah.
And we could keep going. I mean, like, we're going to keep going.
Yep.
That to me is what goes unnoticed. Like how many times you can post a real story, because it's the little things you're doing.
Yep.
The little things, a company does. And I want, you as a sign maker out there thinking about that. Like, you might not get credit for all the work you're doing, but don't stop doing what you're doing.
Right.
Don't give up on it because somebody didn't recognize it. Don't give up on it because one jerk on the internet tried to troll you.
Right.
Just move on.
You got to focus on all the positives and all the good that comes out of what you're doing, not just let the 1/2 of 1% that want to.
And that's
negative.
the way I feel, is like, if you have nothing nice to say, just don't say it.
Right.
Like, just don't say it. Like, and I'm a firm believer in that. Like, move on. Go focus on yourself. Maybe you don't like something a company did. Maybe you don't agree with the way something like, it's not really your deal. Like, just move on.
Right.
You know the best way to move on? Support something else. Go do something. Go do something with your time that is productive for you.
Right.
And as a business owner, don't focus your time on people who have that negative energy. Like, a lot of times when they have that negative energy, it just kind of supports your decision.
And I don't think, and I think sometimes negative energy just comes from people just being generally like unhappy and wanting to complain about things. Like,
Correct.
Just have a better outlook and have a more positive outlook, and
just
don't be out to get somebody all the time.
Well, that's my thing about it, is it's like, how many business owners sit, and I used to be that guy. I'll be honest. I used to sit there and like really stew over it. And it used to bug me when people were, upset about something. And sometimes you have to realize, like, sometimes you're just going to run into a person who, no matter what you do, isn't going to be happy.
Yep.
You could have done it the exact way they wanted you to do it, and they would have found a reason to complain.
Every single time.
And again, don't give up on the little things you're doing that are going unnoticed simply because one person is pointing out something that they would have done differently.
Yep.
Well, you know what? They can do things differently in their business.
I was going to say, grab your own CNC and start doing it your way. Then, if you think
that's exactly it. Like, there comes that point where it's just like, I don't know. I'm a very big person when it comes to being worth what I say I am. Like, my name means something to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do everything right. Trust me. I've made plenty of mistakes in life. There's things I wish I could have done differently. There's things I could have handled better. Like, and I'll believe that till the day I die. Every day I learn something new.
But that's how we learn and get better.
Correct.
I mean,
but like, I'm also a guy that, like, if you have a real issue and you want to talk about it, like, I'll talk about it.
mm-hmm.
I have no problem. It doesn't mean that I'm going to always see it your way, but I will at least talk about it. We can at least have a conversation and come to common ground.
Yep.
But like, if you're one of those people out there that just wants to go out and like troll these mom and pop shops, that's what bugs me, I think, the most, is like, there's so many hardworking Americans and even other businesses outside the country that they work their ass off, and it's to put food on the table for their families. I think a lot of times people just assume business owners are rich, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that work some really long, crazy hours. And again, little things that go unnoticed, right? But their friends or whoever just thinks that, like, oh, they're so rich because they're a business owner. They don't got to deal with it. They don't have to, go through. They go through things that you don't deal with.
Right.
And I've seen employees say it, right? At businesses, we're like, oh, my boss doesn't have to. I bet your boss has 10 times the stress that you think he does, but just doesn't share it with you.
Right.
Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right?
100%.
And like, that's where this whole thing, like, I guess that's where my thing is. And then you have these families that they literally are scraping to make sure that they can pay the bills and do what they want and put a little money away. And maybe they get to go on nice vacations, but they deal with a lot of stress throughout the year, And it's like, rather than picking it apart and making them like have to worry further, just move on.
Right. Just let it go.
Let it go. Like, yeah, like, that's my thing. Like, there's so many ways in your business you can grow. If you put as much energy and focus into growth and development and really building a business, right, as you do focusing on the negative things, like, the world would be a lot better place for everybody.
Absolutely.
Did I miss anything there?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I just felt like it was a topic that needed to be talked about because again, it actually came from something unrelated to us completely. I got a friend of mine that owns a business, and he's been dealing with, had a couple things that out of his control that happened, and I'm not going to really get into a lot of it, not really mine to talk about, but he was really beating himself up. And it made me realize, like, and we talked about it, and I explained to him, like, think about all the stuff you did do, right, in this situation. And it's and he goes, yeah, those are the little things that go unnoticed. And that's what made me like, hey, wait a second, you're right.
Yep.
How many other business owners feel that way? Like, I've done all these things that go unnoticed, but the one little thing I screwed up on, which he owns it. He's like, I screwed up on it, but I paid for it. Like, I fixed it.
Yeah.
But that person will not let it go. Like, they've told every person they know, oh, this wasn't right. But he went back and fixed it.
And they'll leave out the part that he
Correct.
fixed it.
And that's exactly what's bugging him, is that, like, every time they post about it, and they never put in there that he went out there and redid the job for him.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe it was 2 weeks after it was supposed to be done because of finding the error. But he still went out of his, like, he didn't stiff him.
Right.
He didn't tell him, like, nope, not going to fix that for you.
I think there's more people than you think that would just have ignored the problem and
I know there
with
are.
it. So
there's a lot of people out there that, it's always the thing I always find the funniest is when something's wrong, every person tells you, oh, if this was my customer, I would have done it this way. Until they're actually in that position to do it.
And they're like, oh, I'm not going to do it that way.
Correct. And then they don't do it that way. Like, it's easy to say it when it's going to affect
Always.
you personally, but when it helps them professionally, like, they become Casper.
Absolutely.
They disappear pretty dang quick there. So I don't know. There's a lot of people that point fingers. A perfect example of that is, I'm going to point it back to the Super Bowl because a lot of people watch the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce lost his mind on Andy Reid, right?
Yep.
Explosive. Like, everybody saw this. National television, biggest stage, yells at Andy Reid. And how many people said, like, he was a terrible person for doing that, and basically beat him up. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen a lot of these people at their kids' 9-year-old sports, and I've seen them yelling from the stands. You ain't any better.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry.
It probably is the same people, too.
I coach hockey, and I have seen some stuff in the stands from people that blow me. I'm like, dude, this is a 9, 10, and 11-year-old game, and you are screaming at other parents.
Yep.
Like, it's called passion, for one, okay?
For sure.
Like, he is paid millions of dollars. I get it. People are like, he should have held his composure. I'm sorry. He makes a lot of money to go out and perform. Yep. And when he's not on the field and they're not performing and they're failing in his mind on the biggest stage, he's got passion.
Yep.
Did he handle it appropriately? Probably not. Does he admit it? 100%. He admitted that he could have handled it. He goes, I wish I could have taken it back right away. But my point being is that anytime you have passion in something, there is a chance you are going to respond to adverse situations in ways that you maybe wish you hadn't.
100%, for sure.
But it's the passion.
Yep.
And I give people a pass for having passion. I always have. Like, I've had customers yell at me, and it happens. And then once they realize, like, really what's going on, they've come back. I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. And I don't even care. I don't hold it against them. Move on.
Yep.
Like, you had passion. And it's one thing to have passion without compassion, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing when you make a mistake and you can't own it. It's another thing when, you know what, everybody has a moment and you own it, and it actually is just a moment. Mm-hmm. Now, it's one thing to repeat history. If you keep yelling at me every time you have a problem and then every time try to apologize, eventually you lose respect there, right? But there are situations where we have moments where in a heated moment, you wish things would have get handled different.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
And again, like I said, it goes back to that Travis Kelce thing. I just think it's funny how many people blasted him. And I'm like, guys, like...
And I bet the thing that will go unnoticed is him and Andy Reid probably talked about it behind the scenes and haven't told anybody and have squashed it. And it's fine.
It goes back to they don't care.
Right.
They don't need you to know what their relationship is.
And they understand the situation, like the moment and what would go on, like all the adrenaline and emotion that went into it.
Right.
Like it's the biggest game of the year. There's some biggest game of some of those players' lives. Like
I've seen sales guys. I mean, under pressure, trying to get something done, they snap for a second.
Yep.
They have a moment where they kind of get frustrated, and I'm on your team. Like, let me help you. Let's get it done. And then it always comes back around. But do I have to go tell everybody else about it? No. We just solve it. We squash it. We put it under the rug and we move on.
It's over with. Yeah.
We all have bad moments. We all have bad days. And like business owners, like as you guys are listening to this, like you're going to have those days too. Don't forget about the little things that go unnoticed. Keep doing the things that made you successful. Keep being that person. Invest in quality equipment. Do the things that are going to make your business truly successful. And yeah, you might not get credit for every little thing. But I can assure you, if you continue to do the little things that go unnoticed, you will continue to create opportunity.
Absolutely. And you'll have growth.
Yeah. And I think that's the
And
biggest
you'll
thing.
have a lot of positivity that comes from it.
Well, I think opportunity is what you're working for. You're working for an opportunity for that growth. You're working for an opportunity, to really enhance your business or, grow your family's opportunity, whatever you want to call it. But that's why you keep doing the little things that go unnoticed. Like, it's easy to say, I'm not doing it anymore because nobody notices it. You're only hurting yourself
Yep.
because they will notice that.
Don't feel like you need to be noticed.
Remember, every time you don't do something, it gets noticed.
Yep.
I will say that. I've learned that in my life. It's easy to do the things that nobody notices because they're your habit. Once you go out of your way and try to create, out of spite, I'm not going to do this anymore. People start to notice that.
For sure.
And that's what will get noticed. And it just breeds more hate, breeds more misalignment. Just own it, right?
Yep.
So that's what I got. I ran out of things. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
Any sports events coming up?
No.
Nothing.
Quiet
Daytona
stuff.
500 was yesterday.
I got home and saw the last 4 laps.
I missed it all.
It looked like there was 10 cars left at the end.
I was at hockey.
Crazy.
Weird. We have hockey.
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 All
That's what I
the
do.
time.
That's all I do. But you know what? It's something I love. I love coaching the kids. I've been working. It's something I work with a lot of the kids on is, controlling attitude and effort.
Yep.
Because it really is something that I think, I've always explained to a lot of the parents, and I say it, it's not about winning the games today. We're going to lose some hockey games. It happens. The only time I really get mad at our team isn't because we lost the game.
Right.
It's when they didn't give me 100% of their effort. When they didn't give me their best attitudes. When we beat ourselves because of lacking effort and attitude, that's when I get frustrated with these boys because they need to be held accountable in those moments because one day these boys are going to be adults. And one day these boys are going to go off into their lives, into their, careers. They're going to be employees to somebody or business owners, hopefully. Hopefully they all are very successful. But the vast majority of the kids I coach are not going to become NHL stars. I mean, let's just be honest. The chances of becoming an NHL star is significantly less than having to go get a job.
Significantly, for sure. Yeah.
So my point being is, would I love to see them go to the NHL? That would be awesome. It's impossible to believe that every kid I coach is going to go to the NHL.
For sure.
So my goal is to let them walk away with life skills and things that they're going to really gain. Something they can benefit themselves for that, hey, one day when they're in an adverse situation, they know how to control their attitude and effort.
Right. Something that can last a lifetime for them and help them out in the future.
Right. It's doing the little things that go unnoticed. I said, I tell them that all the time. Do the little things in a game that nobody else notices, because if we all do little things that nobody notices, you're going to win a lot of games.
100%.
But the real winner in that whole situation is them individually. Because when they're doing those things, it becomes habit. Habit is going to give them a pathway for success when they're older.
Absolutely.
They're going to do the things that other people maybe don't do, and it's going to make them a more valuable asset to a company or an organization.
Yep. Or themselves as they're running their own business.
Exactly. Because they're willing to do the little things that nobody else is willing to do.
Correct.
So it kind of went full circle there.
We did.
I love it. I just love it.
Good
like I said,
stuff.
it's a part of the bigger plan. This week we've been filming some new content. Pretty excited about it. We are going to be doing a video on flip side operation this week. Pretty excited about that.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, so we're going to show off some Mosaic flip side operation. So if you're a Mosaic user, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to have a new video coming that's going to show you about how to use the flip side operation with a shop saber. For all you Saber Nation people out there, anybody who owns a shop saber, who has access to Saber Nation University, we have a new university video coming also on flip side operation that's going to show you how to check your machine, make sure you're ready to do that process and do it right. So got some really, really cool stuff coming down the pipeline.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty excited about it. And then next month, we get to finish the countertops in the cabinets finally because the material should be here.
Sweet.
Been a little on back order on that, but it's supposed to be here.
I'll have a new place to go and work for the day.
Yeah, that's where I'm gonna relegate you to the showroom.
I'm going to work remotely from the showroom.
No remote work. Dude, you got like 55 boxes of Girl Scout cookies at your desk, by the way.
I do.
You actually have 53 now.
Sweet.
I don't know where those other 2 went.
It'll all work out in the end.
No, but seriously, man, you got cookies coming from every direction at your desk.
You should see my dining room.
Dude,
Probably like 1,500 boxes in there.
Nick Peters' daughter, I'm pretty sure, is the #1 cookie salesperson in the United States.
Oh my God, not even close, dude. There's last year the girl that sold the most sold like 22,000 boxes. I think it was dude. Like, I don't even know how they do it. I'm gonna have to look up the exact number, but it was over 20,000.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, Stella likes to sell between 1,000 and 1,500, and that's like a ton of work. I can't like.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's.
Speaking of selling, we gotta get back at it. So,
With that,
I'm Brandon.
I'm Nick.
Thanks for talking shop with Shop Server.